Welcome back to Miss Parker to you guys. I'm so happy that you came back for another episode of Single While Married. The invisible load of motherhood is what we're talking about today. I will read through my blog post that you see at the bottom of this audio recording, except I will be expanding on each section to give more context, to give more ideas and perspective. So you don't have to be divorced or separated to feel like a single mom. Sometimes the loneliness place is right beside someone who doesn't see how hard you're struggling. And I've been there before. I've been there. Even in my current marriage, I have felt at times where I'm not being seen regardless of how much I've, devote more time and effort into being more present in my marriage and being more present as a mom. But there's ways to get out of that loneliness, because sometimes it's self-inflicted, meaning like you would sit there and you could create stories in your head thinking that you're actually lonely when really you're just probably like depressed or something. But let's keep going. This is a silent struggle that many women know very well. It's the kind of emotional isolation that creeps in after children arrive, routines settle, and roles get silently assigned. And let's dive into that real quick. um, After the children arrive, this could go into postpartum depression and things like that. I feel like some folks think postpartum depression ends after about a year after the baby is born, but I've known women to suffer for a few years, and it gets really difficult for some women, especially if they are doing it alone. It's not easy being a single mom. And even if you have a husband and both of you guys are trying your best and trying your best to split up tasks in parenting and stuff, it still can be a toll on the woman, because most women are the number one caretakers in their household when it comes to the child care. And then let's talk about when routines settle in. After you get a good routine going, sometimes you may feel isolated because it's getting boring. It's getting to the point where everything is predictable. There's no excitement anymore. Your love life with your husband, your intimate life kind of gets very dry. So we're going to talk about all that. And then the roles that get silently assigned, like some roles you didn't think you would be doing, or you at least thought you would be sharing. And it turns out that you're the only one who's going to be doing it. So there's a lot to unpack just in that one sentence. So, whether you're a stay at home mom or working full time outside the home, the emotional weight can feel the same: heavy, invisible, and somehow all yours. And this is the crazy thing, because there's a lot of women who work outside the home that feel like stay at home moms are lazy. They feel like they don't do anything. They feel like, how are you complaining when you get to be at home all day? Because, when you're at work under somebody else's time management, it feels there's a different type of weight and irritability than when you're at home all day. And some women that work outside the home, they long to stay at home all day because they feel like there's a lot of freedom. They can come and go as they please. They can lounge around. But you'll find that there are a lot of stay-at-home moms that actually, this whole isolation thing, being at home, it being at home feeds into that too. Especially, say you have young children and they're not in school yet. Even though you're with your kids, you can still feel isolated and by yourself. You're by yourself normally with your children all day till they go to bed, when they wake up. And then when your husband gets home, he's not really engaged with you. Or if he is, God bless you. But there are some men who come home from work very tired or as just as tired as you, and they're not interacting. They're going into their own cave, man cave, whether that's in their heads or in an actual physical place. And you're still there with the children. So you feel like you don't even have any adult person to talk to. You are literally talking to children all day, and that can take a toll on mothers mentally as well. Whereas on the opposite side, meaning like women that work outside the house, they long to stay at home with their kids and be there, and they dream of all the things they could possibly be doing with their kids, instead of being at the house. But let's get into it, because we're going to have to go through it. So the stay-at-home mom, always on and never off. There's still a myth that stay-at-home moms have it easier because they don't clock in at a job. But here's the truth: they never clock out. And I've been here before with my first son. Before he went to school, I have it was sun up to sundown, running around, playing around. And I'm not even going to say that it was burdensome, for me at least, because I didn't have, I don't, feel like I may have had slight postpartum depression, but not as severe as some women that I know. And also, I'm a very creative person. So when I get bored, I will find things to do. But there are women out there that they cannot find things to do when it's just them and their child. They get very, you know, bored. And I think boredom has a lot. And that whole never clock out thing, I think it really applies to women that have multiple children in different age ranges. A lot of the women that I know, they have at least a 1 year old, maybe a 3 year old, if and then like maybe a newborn. Like there are women who have children very close. Everybody's still potty training. Everybody needs help being fed. Like there is a lot. And when you have multiples running around the house and it's just you, it could get very overwhelming very quickly if you don't have any plan of action for the day, you know? Okay, they're the unpaid CEOs of the household, managing school emails, grocery lists, tantrums, meal times, and emotional meltdowns. Now, I feel like if your kid is in school, like say your kids are in school, you could have multiples and they're in school. My thing is this when it comes to stay at home moms, because I'm at home right now recording this on my couch. My son is at school from 7:45 to 3:55. But 3 o'clock, I kind of like close shop and start preparing for mom life again when he gets home, or when I go pick him up and when he gets home. But during those hours, what are you doing is the question. Because I mean, I've talked to so many women who have kids in school that stay at home, and I'm like, you can't be overwhelmed because of the children. I feel like you're more overwhelmed because you feel trapped financially, and you feel trapped more so that you have to rely on a single household income, which means unless you're a creative person, you're going to feel like the walls are closing in on you. So, but when it comes to like managing school emails, I mean, I think I get maybe 3 emails a month from the school about my son in particular, and he's not getting grades. So they send out these so-called, what do you call them? Report cards, and that literally have nothing on it. I think it's just an automated thing. But even still, managing school stuff, I don't think that's hard, even if you have multiples in different schools, because some people have kids that are in elementary, middle school, and high school. I don't really feel like that's difficult if you put a plan in place. I feel like it's unmanageable and things get difficult when it comes to managing school schedules when you're at home doing nothing and not necessarily looking at everything and planning and organizing your family and your individual kids' lives. That is the job right there. And I guess some people may think that's, overwhelming. I personally don't. But again, I only have one as of right now. I'm pregnant with my second. Grocery list. I mean, unless you don't know what you really want to eat, I don't know how grocery lists and maybe tantrums, meal times, emotional meltdowns. Yeah, I get managing all of that could be a little bit overwhelming, especially with multiples. But when you really break down a stay-at-home mom's day when their kids are at home versus what they are when they're at school, it's vastly different. So for me, I could tell you right now, when my son, before he started school, there was no actual plan. I literally woke up, dropped my husband off at work if he didn't go drive, take the car himself. And Sinatra and I would just be pedaling around the house, occasionally walk to the park, lounge around, do nothing. I didn't have a plan as a stay at home mom with a child that was not of school age. There was no plan. So, my question is, I wonder, for the women that have one or multiples, do you actually have a plan for your kids that are not in school yet? Like, is there a schedule that you have so that one, you don't get bored, and for sure they don't get bored? That's something to really think about. And you can plan that along with planning out the school year with the kids that you have in school, you know? Um, so that's just my little 2 cents. They are therapists, cooks, nurses, chauffeurs, and cleaners. Their contributions are silent and often unnoticed because they don't come with a paycheck. They don't come with a physical paycheck in coins and money, but I do tell women, especially young women, before they have children, or say they or and before they get married, or before they tell their husbands, yes, I will be a stay-at-home wife and mom, I would have a compensation plan put in place with my spouse. If he doesn't want you to work anymore and he wants you to be a sole caregiver of the house, then he needs to make sure that there's finances available in the event that something happens to him, God forbid, to where there's money to take care of the family unit, or he needs to be putting money in an account that's in your name only every month, so in the event that you guys separate or divorce or something unfortunate like that happens, you have money to sustain yourself, at least until you can find a means of income. So, but contributions on a regular basis in a healthy marriage, like I guess for myself, I don't really look to Jeremy and my son to be like, "Good job, mom. I'm so glad you cleaned the house. Good job, mom, for cooking dinner." Like, I don't really look for that, but there are some women who definitely need that type of validation, and that's cool. I definitely understand that as well. Um but we're going to get into more, so like what I want to talk about is for the women that have multiples. Predominantly this is for women who have multiples. I only have one as of right now, but I always tell them to get a mommy fund. Like, I'm going to link in the bottom of this email, this post, my mommy fund list and my mommy fund chart. And you need this because you need to set money aside every day, every week, or whatever, to so that you can pull out of that for housekeeping services, for maybe a couple of meal preps so you don't have to cook all the time, or like just something for yourself. For example, for example, when I was just talking to my housekeeper, actually, she had just came today, and she actually cleaned for 2 hours and it was $63. But guess what? It saved me so much time to where I could plan out this entire episode for you guys and use and talk to you guys. But after she finished cleaning and stuff, I was telling her about my plan on when I do meal prep. I do not cook every day. I used to cook twice a week, and it would be on a Sunday and a Wednesday. And on Sunday, I would prepare 3 meals, and on Wednesday, I would prepare 3 meals. Now, I pick one day a week, and it's normally a Sunday where I will cook all day. Like, I'll literally cook for the entire week so that all my family has to do, or all I have to do, is come in and take everything that whatever we're gonna eat, pop it on the plate, stick it in the microwave, and it's done. There is no cleaning the kitchen on a daily basis after, loads of dishes and stuff like that. No, Sunday we cook, we clean up the kitchen, and then the only thing I'm doing throughout the week is literally washing the dishes we used to eat that day. That's it. And I don't even do that. I throw it in the dishwasher. But I'm just saying there are ways to make your life easier, and they're not expensive they're not expensive. Sometimes it doesn't require any money at all. You know, that mommy fund also could pay for maybe childcare for a couple of hours so you can get away. Matter of fact, I know women who call the babysitter to come babysit for 2 hours so they can go into their bedroom, into their part of the house, and literally take a bath. Some of them do it to take a nap, and that's okay too. It's all about what you care for and how stressed out you really want to be, because if you're really sick and tired and really stressed out to the point where you're having nervous breakdowns and stuff like that, and you're questioning your life and your marriage and your in overall importance, if it was worth having kids, if you're that stressed out, then instead of, you need to find a way to relieve that. And I guarantee you, most of these women, or most of y'all, have not went to your husbands and said anything to them. And if you have said something, the way you presented it maybe was a turn off to him, to where instead of like agreeing, he actually pretty much dismissed you, you know? But let's keep on going. So most of the thoughts process that goes through a lot of stay-at-home moms, especially the ones that have kids that are still in the home that do not go to school, is that he goes to work and comes home, and I stay home, but I'll never stop working. And that goes into what I just said. You can stop working, sis. You can stop. Like, if you really want the relief, because I also know stay-at-home moms who thrive off of complaining about it to other moms or to women that work outside the home. And that's where that whole issue comes in, where some women who work outside the home, they don't want to hear about a stay-at-home mom's problems, because they don't believe that there should be any problems. You know what I'm saying? But I digress. Let's keep going. She's there when the kids wake up. There when they fall asleep, and often still awake after everyone else has gone to bed, folding the day's wait until tomorrow's to-do list. So this to me is just this is like just a person who has no structure. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not bashing stay-at-home moms and women that are really going through it. I'm not really bashing. I'm just giving solutions and ideas, because I'm a stay-at-home mom. I guess you could say I'm a stay-at-home working mom, because this is what I do. I help other moms get through their day-to-day, and I'm telling you right now that the solution is, one, you need to create a schedule for yourself, just like there would be a schedule for yourself if you was in school or you had an actual job. You should wake up before your kids, obviously, right? Breakfast should have been done. Matter of fact, breakfast in our house is super simple. There is no extravagant breakfast over here. I do that once a week, and that's usually on a Sunday when I'm doing other cooking. And it's cereal. Sinatra eats some cereal, or he'll eat breakfast at school. Jeremy usually doesn't even want breakfast in the morning for some reason. He wants his coffee. He goes to work. He might have a pastry or something, or a muffin at work, because he works at a coffee shop. And I eat oatmeal. Like, your breakfast doesn't have to be anything crazy. It could be quick. It could be a granola bar. Some kids, they don't need a whole lot. And if you have little tiny kids, like, you get the bottle to one, you chop up some bananas and maybe some, and get some oatmeal together for the other young ones, and you're done. So waking up and preparing some oatmeal or whatever, and having it all ready before the kids, it doesn't take long to make oatmeal. It doesn't take long to make a bowl of cereal, and you sit them all down and they eat. Okay, like, I just feel that some women overcomplicate their day. And I don't know if it's because they're watching YouTube and following these other moms that are trying and making everything aesthetically pleasing and flowing. You guys, that those videos are edited. They're that's not their daily lives, it's just a moment in time that they recorded and then cut out all the parts they don't want you to see. You know what I'm saying? So, like, when you wake up at you can go to bed at a decent time. Now, do you get woken up in the middle of the night when you have newborns? Yes, obviously. It can get exhausting really quickly. Your toddlers come get in your bed. I'm not saying that that's not a possibility and those things don't happen, because they've happened to me and my husband. But I'm just saying, on a regular day-to-day basis, everybody should be ready to go to bed by 8 or 9 o'clock. And if you choose to stay up late, knowing that you have to be up before your kids, knowing that you have some kids that are early risers, knowing that you're going to be exhausted the next day, if you choose to stay up, you can't get up. You can't get upset or be frustrated because you're sleep deprived, for one. So you gotta people gotta look at their what they're doing, their habits. Yes, I know you want time alone by yourself. So if that's the case, instead of, what I've noticed some parents do is, their bigger kids will get out of school and they want to take them to the park for an hour or two to kind of tire them out. Me, what I do, we don't even, not to the pool, but to the park. We don't even go to the park after school. When Sinatra gets out of school, we come straight to the house. He changes out of his school clothes. He puts them in his school clothes that are the dirty ones in the hamper. He actually goes in and takes his bath right then and there. We work in his workbook. He eats dinner by like 5:30. He's eating his food, and he will go into his room and play for an hour or two, and then we'll go pick up his dad, and then he comes home and goes to sleep. And then when he goes to sleep, I go to sleep. If his dad decides to stay up, that's fine. He's grown. It's on him. But I already know, if I'm going to have things, if I have other kids, like when Jericho gets here, my second son, if I know that he's going to be up and early, and he's going to be an early riser, or I'm going to be waking up in the middle of the night to feed and stuff, why would I try to extend my time by having me time by going to bed at a later time and then being sleep deprived the next day? That's where the mommy fund comes in, where if you just want, I'm telling you, I've even done it myself. I have friends that have done it. We hire a babysitter for 1 to 2 hours, really minimum 2 hours. I've done it up to 3 hours. She would come in and she would watch Sinatra, and I'm literally in my bedroom taking a nap. And you may think that's ridiculous, but if for some people, it's a lifesaver. It's a mental and emotional lifesaver to do that, okay? So, I'm just saying, a lot of this stuff for stay at home moms is a scheduling thing. The lack of having a schedule, the lack of like having a plan for the day, to where your kids have something to do, you have something to do, lack of putting funds to aside for you to be able to have some free time. Because, well, you're going to get the women who say that there is no extra money available, there isn't this, that, and the third, but there is a lot of things that you could be doing as far as online jobs, or just things in general. Like, even if your husband was so frugal and so like strenuous when it comes to money, even if he gave you $20 a week, which is completely ridiculous, but if he gave you $20 a week, you save the little funky $20 a week until you get enough money to where you're like, you know what, today I'm calling the babysitter or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Or most of the women that are stay-at-home moms, y'all are the ones, y'all are the ones that y'all are the ones that, or we are the ones that actually take care of the household bills. Your husband gets paid. I mean, you get the check. You see, okay, we're gonna spend $200 on groceries to this week. We got to pay the light bill, the car note, the da da da. Well, guess what? You need to have the mommy fund. You throw $100 over there too, or $50, or whatever you could squeeze out of that weekly or every weekly, bi-weekly paycheck for yourself, to help yourself. And I'm telling you right now, if women would sit down and tell their husbands, hey, babe, I'm very overwhelmed with the housework. We have the kids, these are predominantly for the women who have kids that are not in school yet. I'm emotionally drained, I'm physically drained. I want to be able to show up better for you as a wife, and I want to be mentally available for you when you get home. Is there any way that we can make room in the budget to where I can hire maybe a housekeeper to come in once or twice a month? Or maybe instead of me cooking, twice a week, or what that once a week, maybe we can have some meal preps done so I can lighten the load over there. Or, just, I'm telling you, if you sit down and you shape it and you frame it in a way to where he sees the benefit of spending the extra money to help you, outside of you saying, I just don't want to do this, it's better. It's better to it's better for you to sit down and shape it in a way to where it's going to benefit him as well. And the benefit is you being his wife and being more available physically and mentally and emotionally for him, with the fact that you're going to be getting something supplemented every once in a while. Now, hey girl, if you got the budget to bring in a housekeeper once a week, you got the money for the meal prep and all of that, this is probably not your fight here. Most of the women who have money or have the resources to basically say, I'm not doing it, and you pay somebody else to do that, let somebody else do that. This is not your argument. This is not your discussion. But for the women who are on a budget or who have literally barely any extra resources, there is something that you guys can do. And if, say if you can't, like that's what I said, say if you can't, you don't have extra money, cooking once a week instead of every day, making your breakfast for your kids easier than more complicated than it has to be. It's, and like, let me tell you also, your kids that are of age like 5 year olds, and those older kids after 5, you need to train them to clean up and pick up after yourself, to relieve yourself of a job. Like my son, I don't clean his room anymore. I don't put up his laundry anymore. I get his clothes from out the dryer, and I go put it on his bed, and I tell him to go hang up his pants and his shirts, and to put his socks and underwear in the correct bin. That's what we do. I don't do that anymore. I literally checked one job off of my list that I will never have to do, because I'm training him to do it himself. When he gets up in the morning, that cereal, I don't have to make his breakfast. He's 6 years old right now, in the first grade. He goes in there, he goes, grabs this box of cereal. I have a little half jug of milk that he can hold. He goes and pours his milk, because I make sure I put everything in a spot where he can grab it, because he's short. So he can go grab his own breakfast in the morning. That's a job that has been checked off my list. He can run his own bath water and get in it and start bathing himself, because I trained him to do that. Now, some of y'all may feel like that's a little bit being like, will view it as lazy or being disconnected. But I'm telling you right now, you want those extra hours to yourself. Do little things add up. Laundry, putting up all his laundry and then turning around and then folding my laundry and putting up, though, even if it was a 10-minute difference, that's still 10 minutes. Him fixing his own breakfast versus me going in there and getting the milk and pouring the cereal and sitting it at the table, that's like an extra 5 minutes. And you're probably saying that's not that big of a deal. It is a big deal, when that means that instead of you getting up in the morning doing it yourself, he knows or she knows to get up and do it, and knows how to do it themselves. So you're not having to crawl out the bed as early as you want. My son wakes up by himself now. He does. He wakes up because we set him on a schedule to where he goes to bed at the same time. And we basically try to acclimate his body to like wake up at a certain time because of how long he's already slept, right? Anyways, he'll get an alarm clock where it'll wake him up at 7 o'clock on the dot. So when he gets up, he already knows, go, come down from your bunk bed, go brush your teeth, you do the bathroom the whole night, come out, go get your breakfast. After breakfast, you put your dishes in the sink, you go straight to your bedroom, you put on your school clothes, get dressed for the day. And then after you do that, I'm just now getting up out of my bed. Am I awake? Yes, I'm already awake, because I hear his alarm. My alarm's set to, I'm awake. But am I up rushing around trying to do that? No, I'm not doing any of that. I'm not doing any of that. When he gets ready when he's getting dressed and putting his clothes on, That time is when I'll come into his room, I'll turn on PBS Kids, talk to him about the day, ask him how he slept, the whole nine. I will do his hair and we're out the door by 7:45, okay? I just eliminated 3 jobs. He can brush his teeth, he can fix his breakfast, and he can dress himself. And he can do laundry, put up his own laundry. That's 4 jobs. You got to train your kids early, to relieve yourself too. That's something that didn't require money. That didn't require any money. That just required a little bit of extra time, a little bit extra discipline to train your kid to make sure you don't have to keep doing it. And then if his younger brother is coming up behind him, he can train him to do exactly what I trained him to do. Obviously, I would be supervising when Jericho gets of age to do that, but still, you got to get creative around here. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so she's there when her kids wake up, there when they fall asleep, and often still awake after everyone else has gone to bed, folding the day's wait until tomorrow's to do list. Yet she's just home. Her exhaustion is dismissed. And I can say that when you have multiples and you're doing the potty training, you're trying to keep everybody entertained and all of that stuff, and you are sleep deprived, you are going to be exhausted. And yeah, you're going, and first off, the whole being dismissed thing, I think it's just a lack of education on women that stay at home. I think that we watch too many movies and fairy tales on what it's like to be a stay-at-home mom. The social media has made it to where people glamorize stay-at-home moms, or they only show the glamorous parts of it. They don't show the struggles that women have behind the scenes. And I wouldn't say that it's the struggles with caring for the kids. I think it's more of the mental struggle of not having any other adults to talk to, not necessarily having a plan of action. You're kind of winging it, and having some type of resentment with not being able to bring in any money to do anything. Because you're grown. You don't want to ask your husband, "Hey, babe, can I go swipe the card or whatever?" Especially if you're on a tight budget. You know, just saying, yet, because she's just stay at home, her exhaustion is diminished, her emotional bandwidth is drained, but her needs are seen as optional. And that right there, the whole thing, like, you need this is an option. It should not be. So this is where your husband should come into play. This is where the wife should go and talk. And I'm telling you right now, I am not a counselor. I am not a therapist. I am none of that. I'm just a lady who's on the internet giving life experience and suggestions and hope and solutions, hopefully to help you, point you in the right direction. And your husband should come in, and you should come in, and you guys need to have a plan of action that's going to work. We all know daycare is expensive. Okay, we all know food's expensive. Things are hella expensive. So if it means that you're going to have to stay home with the kids that are not in school, girl, you better get you an entertainment plan together for them kids that are budget friendly, if not free. And there's a lot of things that are going on, at least in the city that I live, which is the city of Houston, that there are a lot of free daily things for kids. Check out your local churches. They may have Mommy's Day Out, and I think some of those are free. Like, look at all the free things that you can do throughout the week in your city. Create a schedule and have a plan. So you're, like I said earlier, you're not bored, your children aren't bored, you know? And also during nap time, you don't have to get the house cleaned up and stuff, sleep. If it would I know some parents, some moms will sit up there and say, when my kids are down at nap, I'm going to get through the dishes really, really quickly and all that stuff. When Sinatra was a baby and he wasn't able to go to school, but he was walking and crawling, I put his butt in the pack and play. And while he played in there or watched whatever was on PBS Kids, I just went and did my housework. I knew he couldn't get out the pen. So I knew it's not like I had to hold him. And so, like, when I see all of these stories of women saying they can never get their housework done because of the kids, and the way I look at that like, okay, baby as far as like infant can't walk, put them in a little bouncer, put them in their crib, and if they cry, obviously go check on them, change them, whatever. Toddlers, pack and play area where they can't, in a little fenced in area. If the kids are 5 years old or bigger, they're normally at school already. So if you, and then also another thing is, get your kids accustomed to cleaning up after themselves while you're there. So if you're with your toddlers, I say toddlers, there's some women who got 3 and 4 toddlers and a newborn. You with your toddlers, y'all are playing with something. Before y'all move to the next thing, you teach them to clean up that particular activity y'all did before you move on to the next one. So therefore, you are teaching them at a very young age that you need to clean up immediately when you're done with something. That saves you time for having to stay up while everybody else is asleep trying to clean up the whole entire house. And then sometimes I've asked women and talked to women and have asked them, why do you wait until the end of the day to clean up after your kids? Why don't you clean up throughout the day, so by the time the evening rolls around or your husband gets home, there's very minimum work to do? There you have some women who don't believe in making their kids clean up either. So you got those women who complain about a lot of stress and workload they're doing, but they also don't make their kids clean up. They don't discipline their kids or teach them that. They just let them have it throughout the entire house. And then at the end of the day, you're over here stressed out, overwhelmed because there's a mess that actually could have been prevented by just being a little bit more assertive in being in disciplining your kids and making them. And I'm not talking about hitting them or anything. I'm talking about, hey, you need to clean up your mess and clean this area up before you move on to the next thing, or you're not going to be able to move on to the next thing. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. So now let's get into working moms. Always split in two. Me personally, because I've been on this side, I think it's harder to be a working mom outside the house and then having to come home and be with the kids on a consistent basis and do all that, the evening activities. I think it's harder. I think it's more emotionally toiling for her than it is for the mom who stays home with her kids every day. And I say that is because the working mom has to go and deal with the people outside of her house who she probably doesn't like, who they probably don't like. She's probably getting underpaid for one, and but doing a whole lot of work, and depending on the job, it could be labor intensive, especially if you're in hospitality. That, I mean, I'm just saying. So then there's the working mom. She gets up early to make sure the kids are fed and dressed, juggles deadlines and meetings all day, and then heads home for her second full-time shift. And I'm telling you right now, if you and your husband both work outside the home and it's time to get up, the kids to get up, especially if they're young kids, y'all both getting up at the same time. There is no he's sleeping in because he doesn't have to be at work into this. No, absolutely not. I feel like he needs to get up with you. Y'all need to set a time where y'all going to bed, and y'all need to set a time where y'all both getting up, regardless of what time everybody has to be at work. I personally feel like waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning is a pretty good, solid time to wake up. It's before your kids normally get up on average. And at least in our household, before Sinatra gets up, because he doesn't get up until like 6:30, 7 o'clock. That's more than enough time. Plus, we only have one. We'll have two, like I said. But for the ones that have multiples already, different age ranges, it's time for y'all to get up. This is where the team player aspect should come in. Both get up. One tackles one child, or the one or two child, and the other one tackles the other two. Y'all get them ready to go. Y'all shuffle everybody into the kitchen. Y'all all eat breakfast together. Get the other ones ready off to school. Whoever's dropping off the kids, because they got to go to work straight from then, they're the ones who need to drop off the kids. If you're dropping off the kids because you have to be at work first, I mean, I personally feel like that should be your job, the dropping off the kids. So, I feel like in the morning, the workload should be equal or split up in a way that makes sense for you guys. Okay. y'all go to work all day. So that means if you have young kids, you either paying for daycare or a babysitter, or everybody is at school. So when it's time to come home, whoever gets off early obviously goes picks up the kids. Y'all come home. If you're the parent that picks up the kids and gets to the house first before the other parent does, in this situation, we're going to say dad gets off work, he picks up the kids. His job, in my opinion, should be getting all the kids changed out of their clothes for the day if it's necessary, or to sporting activities or wherever they have to go if they have any. But say they don't, their kids aren't there yet and they're just like, let's say elementary school, you bring them kids home, change them out of their dirty school clothes, pop them in the bath, and then and then start dinner if dinner isn't already cooked. But if dinner's already cooked because mom or dad or both decided we're going to cook on Sundays for the week, all you're doing is heating up food on the plate. You're feeding everybody, get them all dressed, and send them about their way to the playroom. So when mom gets home, yes, dad worked, he came home, he took care of the kids and stuff. But now when she comes home, she's doing the bedtime stories, she's doing the tucking in, she's doing all the extras. Matter of fact, she might go in and clean up the dishes in the kitchen and stuff like that. But and then the roles can be vice versa, because I could say this, not everybody's schedule is the same. So I just feel like whoever picked up the kids, they're the ones who are going to start the evening process. So what's happening is dad isn't starting the evening process if he's getting home before mom and he's with the kids. He's waiting on mom to start the evening process, but mom doesn't walk through the door until 6:30. So at 6:30, before she even throws her heels off, she's got to run to the kitchen, get everybody's plates made, feed everybody, bathe everybody, get everybody to bed. And dad is saying, "Oh, how was your day, babe? I know you're probably tired," and she's probably wanting to slap him by then, you know? So, I mean, really, unless you're the mom or the wife who's got this whole I'm a super mom and you get some type of arousal, or you got some, you, it does something for you to feel like everybody needs me, then, which is not healthy because that you'll get burnt out and have resentment later on, then you need to communicate this is how it needs to go. If I'm getting off work after you and you've already picked up the kids, half of the evening stuff needs to already be done or in progress when I walk through the door or get to the house or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So this mom, she lives with constant guilt at work for not being home enough, at home for not performing at her best. So you got though this woman who works outside the home, most some women have to bring work home. If they're in corporate America, my grandmother had to do it. I've had to do it. You bring work home. And then so you're not readily available. And this also goes for the stay-at-home working mom, the moms that don't have traditional jobs, they're entrepreneurs or they're running their own business. Same type of stuff, you know what I'm saying? A little bit more wiggle room, but in the same realm. And this person, the mom, she feels guilty because she can't, she's too tired to be available for her husband, she's too tired to be available for her kids. She does the weekends, if she don't have to work, she don't want to go to the school plays and stuff like that. She'll go, but will she be like excited? Probably not, because she's probably tired. You know what I'm saying? So like, it's it's not a win-win at all. It's about balance. And let's not even talk about the women that are single with kids that got to do all of it. That's just a whole nother conversation in itself, you know. Okay, even when she has help, the invisible responsibilities still land on her shoulders. Like, most of the women are planning the family trips, the birthday parties, they're coordinating doctors a visit, bedtime routines, emotional check-ins with everybody. And you have to understand, not only is she dealing with the personalities and the mental craziness from people outside of her home, but everybody inside her home, all the kids all have different personalities, all have different levels of need. Her husband has his own stuff, and then she has herself. So, like, she's there for everybody, but it doesn't seem like nobody's there for her. And I guarantee you, she doesn't expect her children to satisfy that need for her. I Most women, that's expect their husbands to be their emotional support when they're feeling like they can't do it anymore, or they need the reassurance and stuff like that. But your husband has to be observant. He has to be Y'all have to be in sync together enough and have more conversations on a regular basis. Like those date nights that people like to plan, it ain't always about trying to have sex. Sometimes those date nights are trying to come up with a game plan for mental health within the household. You know what I'm saying? It's not all about that. You know what I'm saying? So those are the unseen emotional responsibilities. I clock out of work just to clock in at home, and no one's keeping time for me. That no one's keeping time for me is actually your husband's responsibility, in my opinion. She often feels judged when she needs help. And I feel like when she's being judged, either her husband has done that to her, or this is something that she's made up in her head and she assumes. And that's another thing us ladies do. We do too much assuming of what our spouses think and what they will do and will not do without actually asking, you know? And worse, asking for it to make her feel like she's failing and doing it all. So, but what about the husband? We're finally here at 46 minutes in. Here's the part we often miss. Many men aren't trying to ignore their wives' struggles. They're really not. They're simply unaware. I could tell you the amount of women I've spoken to who have told me about how their husbands seem absent-minded about them when it comes to like the kids and their needs around the house. And I'm like, well, have you spoken to them about it? Well, no, I haven't spoken to them about why. You're over here, you could tell if what all this crap that you're telling me about how you need A, B, and C and this, and you haven't said a word to him, and you're walking around like I'm a boss babe and I got this and I'm mama bear and all this extra stuff, then why would he assume that you need any help when you're walking around and you're voicing that? You know what I'm saying? It's not always selfishness. Sometimes it's conditioning. Sometimes it's poor communication. You have to understand, some men were raised in a household where their mothers took on all the responsibilities of the home and worked outside the house, or they just took on all the responsibilities of the home and were proud to do it. They showed pride, they were happy, even if they were faking it. Back in the day, you got boys that were raised in homes like that who, if they tried to do anything or they watched their dad try to iron his clothes, their mother will run over and be like, da, 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 da. What are you doing? You know you don't touch that. You know you don't cook. Why are you in here cooking? That's my job. They are conditioned. That's what they saw, right? So you got women who are married to men like that. And in the last episode, I talked about expectations and having conversations before I say I do on expectations of the roles that are going to be played in this home, in this marriage. Because just because I'm a woman doesn't mean I do all the cooking, or just because you're the man doesn't mean you're the only one that does any type of labor or like task jobs around the house. But most of the time it's poor communication, in my opinion. It's poor communication from the very beginning, before the babies get here, before you say I do, before you even get to the down the aisle picking out the dress, before the proposal. There should be expectations rolled out already between what you would expect out of a spouse. I mean, unless you're just dating for the hell of it and you're not dating to look for a spouse, then I could see why you never talked about it. But when things start getting serious, you should start talking about those types of things. So there's no surprises when things come up. You know what I'm saying? It's not always sometimes it's because they genuinely believe she's got this. Like I said, especially if their wives has what we call super mom syndrome. She handles everything, rarely complains, and seems to thrive on being needed. If you suffer from that, honey, you need to get some help. You do not want to be that woman that everybody calls and asks and needs, because you're going to get burnt out and you're going to be resentful. I'm a damsel in distress, okay? When my husband is around me, He asked me, "Hey, do you need me to do something?" Yes, I do. "Oh, are you needing help in that?" Yes, I do. When my husband asked me if I need help, could he do this for me? I'm not going to say, "No, babe, I got it." I'm going to say, "Yes, babe, please. Thank you." Like, no. You know what I'm saying? But here's what's really happening. She thrives on being important because no one else is stepping in. So she's like, I got this. She looks strong because she doesn't feel safe being weak, depending on the type of marriage dynamic you have. And also you got to think about this. The women on his side of the family are looking at you, judging you, and telling him what he needs to be expecting out of you when they're at home not going through none of that. Okay. So, like, that's another conversation, another, like, in-laws is a whole nother beast, okay? Because them in-laws will creep into your spouse's mind and get in their ear and have them believe in a whole narrative about you because you didn't want to take out the trash, okay? Or you wanted to sleep in an extra 30 minutes. Like, that's a whole nother conversation. She doesn't ask for help anymore because she got tired of explaining why she needed it. You shouldn't have to explain why you need help. It should be pretty obvious. But if you're the type who's like, well, Tiff, I've talked to my husband multiple times. I've told him what I needed. And I'm done talking. I'm just done. And I'm not explaining that I need help anymore. So I'm just going to suffer through this. Absolutely not. You're not going to suffer through this. That's when you start saying, okay, what are some ways where I can offset, or where can I stop spending so I can start affording my mommy relief, okay? That's what you need to do, okay? From the husband's point of view, things may seem fine. The kids are fed, the house is standing, she doesn't seem unhappy, but emotional detachment isn't always loud. It's quiet, functional, and dangerously easy to miss. Communication. A man might ask, she's may think she's got this covered while she's silently screaming and drowning. I think husbands should probably check in with their wives on a daily basis. Check in on your wife. Matter of fact, forget that. Y'all need to check on each other because there's stuff going on at the office or wherever you're working. If you're working outside the home, there's women that are staying at home who are feeling lonely and stuff because their man's at work all the time. And especially in today's world, check on each other every day. I asked Jeremy, how was work? Anything crazy happening? Because when he tells me that he had a rough day, I off top know what not to bother him with. You know what I'm saying? And vice versa. Like, you have to, this is how you know if you really know your spouse. This is how you get to know your spouse. This is how you know when to approach him or her, by having these conversations, by talking and getting to know each other more. You get so wrapped up in the day-to-day life, y'all forget about each other. Check in with each other. Communication is the foundation of a relationship. And if you can't communicate, you really don't have nothing going on. You know what I'm saying? So marriage isn't about dividing chores 50-50. There is no such thing as 50-50 in a marriage, in a relationship. Hell, it could be 20-80-30-70-60-40. Whatever you got to do to make it work. But you need to pull in your part when you need to pull in. You need to step up when you step up. And will it be hard? Yes, it could be very difficult. Stay at home mom, or stay at home, or working mom, outside the home mom. It all is difficult. All of it could be strenuous. It's about creating a plan of action. It's about communication. It's about, if you are at home with your kids, every day is a learning day, a training day on how you can relieve yourself of a job that those kids can do themselves. Stop taking on the jobs that your children can do yourself. I know parents who have kids that are in middle school and high school. They don't clean their rooms, they don't make their beds, they don't put out their clothes in the morning. Their mothers are doing that. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. My son, like I said, my son is 6. He hangs up his own clothes and he does his own laundry. As far as putting up his clothes. He gets his own breakfast. He brushes his teeth in the morning. He knows how to get up and get dressed for school because that's repetition and training from a young age. So I don't have to do that and get up and do all this extra stuff for a child that is capable, clearly. So when you're telling me that there's moms out here making breakfast for a child that's 14, cleaning the dishes after, my son knows how to put his dish in the sink, turn on the water, rinse it out, and put it in the sink. You got kids that are 14 who don't even take the plate off the table after they're done eating. Like, no. And it has to be a joint effort. Your husband and you have to have a joint effort in training the kids. Anytime that you tell that child, put your plate up, go rinse your plate out, and they rebuttal, your husband needs to swoop in and be like, what did she say? Period. There is no argument if you're on the same if you're on a team, because let me tell you, like, Jeremy and I are on the same team. Sometimes our son try to play us against each other, and it just doesn't happen because we're in consistent communication on how we're going to raise our kids. We're in consistent communication on what we told our son, like, in when we're by ourselves with them. So he's not confused, I'm not confused, there's no surprise. There is no surprises in the Parker household. That's how open our communication is. And will we agree on everything? No, we're not going to agree on everything, but we're going to talk and work it out until we agree something's going to happen. So it's never about 50-50. And all these women out here that says, I don't do 50-50. Well, great. You and like the rest of the other women don't. But if you think that you're going to marry a man who is, you're going to find a man who, and he's going to he may take care of all your bills, all the bills of the household. You may not have to go get a job. But he's going to need you in other ways. He's going to need you when them children come. You know what I'm saying? You're going to want 50-50 then. I never got married with the mindset of this marriage is going to be 50-50 or 0-100. I never did that. I always was like, this marriage is going to work because we're going to pull our weight when it's needed. When it comes to the kids, when it comes to just everything, going everywhere, doing anything, planning, we pull our weight in the areas that are needed the most, you know? For a husband, start asking not just what needs to be done, but how she's really doing. Ask her how she's doing. If she expresses to you that she's screwed, she doesn't understand why she's feeling this way, you may have to swoop in and save the day and say, you know what, go take you a mental health day, or ask her what she needs to help her out. Be proactive. Don't wait for her to break down to offer support. I don't understand why you would wait until the point where if you see that something's off about your wife, she's quiet, or she's passive aggressive, or she's not sexually active with you anymore. Why the hell would you wait until it gets real bad? The moment she goes silent too long, you should be like, is there anything I can do for you? Do you want me to call in backup reinforcements? Whatever, do something. Appreciate out loud and often. I think that's what some men need to do. A lot of men don't do that. It's not because they don't want to do this, because they're not thinking about it. Because in today's economy, a lot of men are just, all they're thinking about is, damn it, I got to go pick up these hours. I got to pull this extra weight, do this extra project so I can bring in more money, so I can take care of my family and keep the lights on and the food on the table. That's what most men are thinking. That's what those are their marching orders. That is what they were put, that's what they were trained to do, and that's what they gonna do. And they're not thinking about the extras. But I'm telling you, if you're a man listening to this, think about the extras every once in a while, more often than not, if possible. That means you got to take a time and think about, on those date nights, don't just be thinking about sex, thinking about, intimacy, because intimacy isn't just sex. It's a whole lot that goes into intimacy when it comes to women. Don't confuse her science with satisfaction either. Don't do that. And so for the wives, say what you need, even if you hate that you have to. Sometimes, ladies, we have to voice our concerns. You might have to wake up one day after breakfast, and be like, on a day like maybe your husband and you are off for a couple hours apart. Well, I don't know. Just one day when you're not doing nothing, the kids are off doing something, not in front of the kids, obviously, and say, I got complaints, or I have concerns, or I have these needs. You're going to have to open your mouth. 'Cause I'm telling you, some of these men are just oblivious. They're not thinking about it. They got other stressors on their mind. And so you may have to bring it to their attention. Okay. Don't wait until you're boiling over. Speak from your heart, not your resentment. And a lot of women will wait until they're freaking pissed to the moon to where they can't even talk. They're so angry, they're screaming and hollering, and it's coming out like a bunch of gibberish. And you really think you're speaking English and there's nothing coming out but a bunch of yelling and hollering. You need to wait. You don't wait that long. The moment you got a tingling in your stomach and your soul, the moment you got an itch of frustration, the moment where you feel that rage coming in, that's when you need to say something right then and there. You don't need to wait. You don't need to wait to see what he does. You don't need to wait to see how this is gonna. You don't need to wait on nothing. You need to say something right then and there. Also, make room for honest conversations, even when they're uncomfortable. Because a lot of people, they're married for 20 some years and still can't speak about the stuff that the elephant in the room. And that's wild. That is wild. And I understand some things are embarrassing. Some things you already know it's going to cause an argument. But if you know it's going to cause an argument, that probably means y'all need to talk and work that out. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, this is the silent struggle of a lot of women. This isn't about the blame, it's about balance. Most women aren't looking for a parade, they just want to feel seen and heard and supported. They want to know that their sacrifices aren't invisible and that their needs aren't secondary. Marriage is a partnership, not a quiet contract where one person carries the emotional load while the other helps out. No, that's not what it is. So here's something for everybody. This is a challenge. If you're a mom and this resonates, you are not asking for too much. You are not crazy for feeling this way. You're just carrying more than one person should have ever carried. If you are a husband and this hits a nerve, start noticing, start asking, start showing up emotionally, not just physically. And if you're reading this together, have the conversation, not about the kids, not about the schedules, but about each other, because many marriages are surviving, but the women in them are not. All right, you guys, I'm glad that you tuned in, and you can watch the previous episode on missparkertoyou.com, and I will see you in the next one.